You're listening to More Than Steps, the podcast where we geek out on how belly dance works, one coffee run at a time. I'm your hostess, Heather Wayman. Hey everybody, it's Heather Wayman, director at Belly Dance Geek, and today's podcast is about practice. We all want to practice. Well, maybe not all of us, but I think we all want to practice at least at some point. And we make valiant efforts to do so, and sometimes things just don't work out. You might be having a really bad day, you might get stuck at work, or your car won't start, you miss the bus, whatever. Everything just seems to be going to crap. And then when you get home, you might discover that you forgot to take anything out for dinner, to defrost for dinner. So there's that, and if you can get past all of that, by the time you get home and fed, you're too tired and cranky to put practice clothes on, much less actually dance. So sometimes it's just not a great day. And there's nothing wrong with skipping a practice session once in a while, but when you miss a practice session, it often turns into 2 practices, and then a week goes by, and then before you know it, you've missed out on hours and hours of practice, when 5 minutes would have kept you on track. Now, if you want to make consistent progress in your dance, you have to practice. We all know this. And this is true whether your goal is to become a professional dancer or just prepare for your next hafla. But life gets in the way and things happen. That's why you need a practice plan for those days when you just can't squeeze in a full practice session. And surprisingly, 5 minutes of practice can really make a big difference. So when you're tired, stressed, and short on time, it's tempting to skip your practice session entirely. But frequent practice, even in trivially short sessions, tells your brain that what you're practicing is important, and your brain obliges by optimizing the path to that information. So while you won't make a ton of progress in those 5 minutes, you'll actually accomplish more in your next full-length practice session. Plus, you'll maintain the momentum of your practice habit, so practicing will feel like a normal and natural part of your day rather than a guilt-inducing to-do on your list. Okay, so how do you plan a 5-minute practice session? When you only have 5 minutes to practice, you cannot waste a second, so it's really important to plan your session carefully. If you're working on a particular piece, one run through is all you may have time for, and that's okay. But if you're working on a point of technique or a combo, you can try this format. Okay, so in minute 1, you can do a quickie warm-up just to get your blood flowing and your joints loosened up. Some good options for this can be shoulder rolls with pliés, hip circles, side stretches, hamstring stretches. You can roll up your spine. You can just do all sorts of things, but just for 1 minute. Okay, it's tempting to skip the warm up when you're pressed for time, but don't do it. You won't dance as well without it, and it prepares your brain to learn, and you're also a lot more likely to end up with some kind of an injury if you skip this. Okay, so minutes 2 and 3 can be nitpicky practice. You can review material that you're working on. You can do it really, really slowly, focusing on the details, things like alignment, position, which muscle is working, and etc. Just be sure to work both sides equally, because we all have a favorite side and you don't want to end up with an imbalance. Okay, in minute 4, we're going to call this tempo practice. Practice the material at a speed that is challenging but doable. At first, this will be a moderate tempo, and over time you can work up to a faster tempo. And then minute 5, which will be practicing in context. This is where we'll practice the material while dancing. You can improvise or use it in a pre-planned combination. Okay, so let's just look at an example. Let's say that I'm learning a new choreography and I want to polish up a particular move, and I don't have a lot of time, but I've got 5 minutes. I can find those 5 minutes. So here's what I can do. The first minute, I warm up. The second minute, I'm going to practice, let's just say I'm going to practice hip slides with a shimmy, and maybe an accent on the ends. Okay, so I practice those hip slides with my shimmy, and I start off in going through each position. They're going to slide back and forth, and then I add the accent. Okay, now at first I could do this slowly and deliberately, making the move as perfect as I can manage at the time. And in the third minute, I'll do the same thing on the other side. Now this would work better if it was a movement that, maybe had a directional change on it, but you get the idea. And then in the fourth minute, I would practice that at a medium tempo and then try to speed it up. And if it's just getting a little bit messy on the accents, if I'm doing it too quickly, then I can slow it down if it's not nice and clean. And then in the fifth minute, I would practice that in a combination or in the context of dancing. Okay, so, and that's all in just 5 minutes. And I can get those hip slides with those accents and shimmies just really super crisp and clean, and they look great. Okay. So it's true that you won't make a huge progress in 5 minutes, but remember, we're not concerned with what you can accomplish during your mini section. We are focused on the big picture. Our top priority is to maintain the practice habit. And if you show up today, you are much more likely to show up tomorrow and the day after and next week and next month too. But skipping today puts all that future practice at risk. Plus, tiny practice really, really adds up. Even if you never do a full-length practice ever again, 5 minutes a day adds up to 30 hours and 25 minutes of practice per year. Not too shabby, right? How much could you improve your shimmies or your finger cymbals or your improv skills after clocking in 30 hours of practice? Okay, so let's summarize. While you do need to get consistent practice if you want to make progress, there are some days when you just can't squeeze in a full session. In that situation, it's actually better to practice for 5 minutes than to skip it entirely. That tells your brain that the material is still important, which makes your later full practice sessions more effective. To get the most benefit, be sure to do a quick warm-up. Don't skip it. You're tempted, but don't do it. Practice one topic slowly and deliberately, practicing the same thing at tempo, and then practice it in a dancing context. When you only have 5 minutes to practice, you can't waste a second collecting your stuff. So be prepared. Prepare your 5-minute practice plan right now before you need it, because one of these days, and it could be tomorrow, you might need this plan, and if you don't have it, then you're probably going to end up skipping that session. So write down what you want to work on, pick out a 5-minute song with a suitable tempo, and place your notes, your music, and your hip scarf, and whatever else you need right next to your music player. And with your 5-minute practice plan in place, even bad days won't be able to stop you. All right, now it's your turn. Have you ever done a mini practice? If you haven't, it is super, super useful. How do you maintain your practice momentum? And what are your favorite practice tips? If you have a practice habit, kudos to you. Absolutely fabulous. If you don't have one and you really want one, you can do it. You absolutely can. And if you have a habit and it's just kind of like floating along and you'd like more tips on how to really, really jazz up your practice habit and keep it going nice and fresh, then you might want to consider our course, How to Build a Sustainable Practice Habit. It's a 9-week course, and it's coaching and lots of in-depth tips on how to make your practice habit sustainable, which is why it's called that. And the next live run of this program is starting on January 13th, 2020. And I would love for you to join me in that that course. And I've also got an early bird special going on. You can actually save 25% by enrolling early, and this savings is only going to be available between now and Cyber Monday, through Cyber Monday on December 2nd, 2019. All you got to do is go check it out at bellydancegeek.com/habit, and then put the premium package in your cart and use coupon code EARLYBIRD. That's all one word, and just do that anytime between now through December 2nd. And we will see you on the course. Thanks for listening. For more geektacular resources, visit bellydancegeek.com.